So, Andrea, let's turn to another topic that continued to make headlines over the holidays, and that is bird flu. It seems the news is getting worse. What's going on?
Well, the most recent headline came earlier this week when we learned that a patient in Louisiana who had been hospitalized with severe H5N1 bird flu has now died. This was the first severe case of bird flu we've seen in this country, and I think also it's tragically the first human fatality here. According to media accounts, that patient was older than 65 and did have underlying medical conditions. The patient reportedly became infected with the virus after exposure to a backyard flock and wild birds. This is a different genotype of the virus than the one that's been detected in dairy cows. The CDC says there's still no sign that the virus is spreading from person to person anywhere in the country. And Louisiana officials have not identified any other cases in the state. In a New York Times article, one virologist reminded us that it's important that people remain vigilant and they avoid contact with sick animals, sick poultry, sick dairy cattle, and also avoid contact with wild birds.
Andrea, I know there's been some concern that as the virus continues to infect people, that it could mutate. Have we seen any evidence that that might be happening?
Yeah, Todd, actually late last month, the CDC said its analysis of samples from that Louisiana patient showed mutations that had not been seen in samples from that infected backyard flock on the patient's property. The patient's sample showed mutations in the hemagglutinin gene, so the part of the virus that plays a key role in attaching to host cells. So this suggests that the mutation developed within the patient as their illness progressed. One of these mutations was also present in the virus sampled from a 13-year-old Canadian girl. If you recall that case, she too was seriously ill, hospitalized, required respiratory support. Thankfully, she has since recovered. Again, both of these patients carried a version of the virus that is circulating in wild birds. It's distinct from the one that's causing an outbreak in dairy cattle. And although these are isolated cases, I think some experts worry that when taken together, they point to the potential for the virus to evolve into more dangerous forms. This doesn't change the CDC's current assessment of risk, but it's certainly something that we're continuing to watch closely.
All right, well, thank you so much for the update on bird flu. Unfortunately, it isn't the only virus of concern right now. We've seen numbers increasing across the country for other respiratory viruses too. Andrea, where do things stand right now?
Well, according to reports by the Associated Press, sick season is now in full force, and CDC data suggests that influenza in particular is spreading across the U.S. In late December, 40 states reported high or very high levels of illness. Dr. Carrie Reid, who's a spokesperson with the CDC, said the most recent CDC hospitalization data and other indicators show that flu virus is trending higher than other viruses such as COVID or RSV. Several seasonal flu strains are driving cases. Those include H1N1 and H3N2. Flu activity has been particularly intense in the South, the Southwest, and the Western U.S. And the states reporting lesser amount of virus were mostly in the Northern Great Plains and New England. Looking at exact numbers so far this season, the CDC is estimating there have been at least 5.3 million flu illnesses, 63,000 hospitalizations, and 2,700 deaths, including at least 11 children.
Wow, Andrea, how does that compare to other winter virus seasons that we've been through?
Well, Todd, it's definitely too soon to tell if this winter will be worse than others, but health officials continue to recommend that everyone 6 months and older get their updated flu and COVID vaccination. They also remind people to avoid touching their eyes, their nose, their mouth, and to be really vigilant with hand washing, and also cleaning frequently touched surfaces is also always a good idea.